The afternoon sun filtered through the grimy windows of Torrin's Roast House Café, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum floor. I had owned this place for 15 years, watching it slowly decay like everything else in my life. The espresso machine wheezed like an old man climbing stairs, and the cash register had more personality than my wife these days. I pushed through the kitchen doors, wiping grease from my hands with a stained towel. The lunch rush was over, and the cafe should have been bustling with the usual afternoon crowd. Instead, I found an eerie quiet that made my skin crawl. That's when I saw them. Jessa, my wife of 22 years, sat at the corner table with Mason Reed, our 29-year-old barista. Her perfectly manicured hand rested on his muscled forearm while she leaned in close enough to count his eyelashes. The sight hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut. "Drake," Jessa said without looking up, her voice dripping with the same condescension she used when explaining why we couldn't afford a vacation. "You're already too old and can't do anything. Why don't you go fix something in the kitchen?" Mason chuckled, a sound that reminded me of fingernails on a chalkboard. "Yeah, old man. Leave the real work to us." I stood there for a moment, feeling every one of my 44 years pressing down on my shoulders. My boxing days were long behind me, replaced by aching joints and a growing gut. But my brain still worked just fine. "Interesting," I said, keeping my voice level. "Especially since we closed early today." I walked to the register and checked the timestamp on the last transaction. 3:15 p.m. It was now 4:30, and the door was still unlocked. I glanced at the security camera in the corner, its red light blinking steadily. "Just harmless flirting, Drake," Jessa said, finally looking at me with those green eyes that used to make my heart race. Now they just looked cold. "Don't make a big deal out of nothing." "Mason, get back to work," she added, waving him away like a queen dismissing a servant. I walked into the office behind the counter, my hands surprisingly steady as I accessed the CCTV system. The footage showed everything clearly: Jessa and Mason closing the cafe early, turning off the lights, and settling into their cozy corner booth. I saved the clip to a flash drive, then pulled up the POS reports. Interesting. Mason's login showed multiple voided orders over the past month, always on days when I wasn't around. Cash transactions that never made it to the register. I printed everything out, including his employment contract. When I returned to the main cafe, I placed Mason's contract on the counter with the workplace relationship clause highlighted in yellow. "Thought you might want to review this," I said. Mason's cocky grin faltered as he read the document. Jessa rolled her eyes. "Really, Drake? You're going to hide behind paperwork now?" The kitchen door burst open with a bang that made all three of us jump. Tina Reed, Mason's wife, stood in the doorway like an avenging angel. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her waitress uniform from the diner down the street was stained with coffee and determination. "Well, well," Tina said, raising her phone. The camera flash illuminated our guilty tableau as she snapped a photo. "Our lawyer will need this." Jessa's face went pale beneath her expensive makeup. Mason looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "Tina, I can explain," Mason started. "Save it," Tina cut him off. She turned to me. "You got security footage of this?" I held up the flash drive. "Everything you need." She took it with a nod. "Appreciate it, Drake. Some of us still believe in marriage." The silence that followed was deafening. Jessa stared at me like I'd just grown a second head. "You're really going to destroy our family over this?" "I'm not destroying anything," I said, walking to the office. "Just documenting what's already broken." I locked the office door and grabbed my jacket. As I headed for the exit, I could hear Jessa and Mason arguing in hushed tones. Their problem now. That night, I sat in my lawyer's office filling out divorce papers. The termination paperwork for Mason was even simpler. By morning, Torrin's Roast House would be closed for a complete audit, and my 22-year marriage would be officially over. The age joke had just ended permanently. 3 days later, I stood outside my own cafe staring at the "closed for audit" sign I'd posted. The morning was crisp, with that autumn bite that reminded you winter was coming whether you were ready or not. Coffee-deprived regulars pressed their faces against the glass like zombies craving their fix. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Jessa ranged from apologetic to furious to threatening. I ignored them all. "Dad?" I turned to find Riley, my 19-year-old daughter, approaching with her phone in hand. As always. That device was practically surgically attached to her palm. "Hey, kiddo." I tried to sound normal, but my voice came out rough around the edges. "Mom told me what happened." Riley's blue eyes, Jessa's eyes, studied my face. "She says you're being dramatic." "That what she says?" "Are you really getting divorced?" The question hung in the air between us like smoke. Riley had always been closer to her mother, drawn to Jessa's ambition and polish. I was just the guy who made pancakes on Sunday mornings and taught her how to change a tire. That's between your mother and me, I said finally. Riley's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at me. This is going to ruin everything. My friends are already asking questions. Mom says Mason was just helping with inventory. Inventory? I almost laughed. Sure. You don't have to be such a jerk about it. The words stung more than they should have. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. When had she become so much like her mother? All sharp edges and judgment. I'm not the jerk here, Riley. She rolled her eyes and walked away, fingers already flying across her phone screen, probably updating her social media followers on the latest family drama. I unlocked the cafe and stepped inside. The place felt different now, like a crime scene after the investigators had finished. Every surface held memories that now felt tainted. The corner booth where Jessa and Mason had been sitting looked particularly toxic. My phone rang. Coach Sam Mendez, my old friend from the boxing gym. Heard about the situation? Sam's gravelly voice came through the speaker. You holding up? Peachy. Cut the tough guy routine. You want to talk, or you want to pretend everything's fine until you have a breakdown in aisle 3 of the grocery store. Despite everything, I smiled. Sam had a way of cutting through nonsense that I'd always appreciated. Cafe's closed for a few days. Might swing by the gym. Good. And Drake? Don't do anything stupid. Define stupid. Anything that gets you arrested or makes you look like the bad guy. You got the moral high ground here. Don't give it up for the satisfaction of punching Pretty Boy in the face. After hanging up, I spent the morning going through the books. Mason's theft was more extensive than I'd initially thought. Small amounts, but consistent. The little weasel had been skimming for months. Around noon, the door chimed. I looked up to see Jessa walking in like she owned the place, which technically she still partially did. We need to talk, she announced, her lawyer voice in full effect. No, we don't. Drake, be reasonable. This whole thing is blown out of proportion. I set down my pen and really looked at my wife. 48 years old, but she could pass for 35 thanks to expensive creams and regular gym sessions. Her auburn hair was styled perfectly. Her business suit probably cost more than most people made in a week. When had I stopped finding her beautiful? Or had she stopped being beautiful to me? Blown out of proportion, I repeated. You were having an affair with an employee half your age, and I'm being unreasonable. It wasn't an affair. We kissed a few times, that's all. The security footage tells a different story. Her composure cracked slightly. You're going to believe a camera over your own wife? When my wife lies to my face? Absolutely. Jessa moved closer, switching tactics. Think about Riley. Think about our life together. 22 years, Drake. Are you really going to throw that away? I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that. Mason means nothing to me. He makes me feel young again. Attractive. When's the last time you made me feel that way? The question hit like a punch to the solar plexus, because she was right, in a way. We'd been roommates for years, going through the motions of marriage without any of the passion, but that didn't excuse what she'd done. So it's my fault you cheated. I didn't cheat, and yes, maybe if you'd paid more attention to your wife instead of this struggling cafe, things would be different. This cafe keeps things running. It pays for your car, and your clothes, and your spa days. Barely. Do you know how embarrassing it is when my colleagues ask what my husband does? Oh, he runs a little coffee shop. Meanwhile, I'm making partner at the firm. There it was, the real issue. I wasn't successful enough for her anymore. I didn't fit the image she wanted to project. Then you should be happy to get rid of me, I said. Jessa's mask slipped completely. Fine, but don't expect this to be easy. I want half of everything, including this place. Good luck with that. She stormed out, heels clicking on the linoleum like gunshots. Through the window, I watched her get into her BMW and speed away. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news. Some of us are rooting for you. Tina. Mason's wife, soon-to-be ex-wife. I looked around the empty cafe, at the faded photos on the walls and the mismatched chairs that had seen better decades. Maybe Jessa was right. Maybe this place was slowly fading. But it was mine, and I'd be damned if I let her take it without a fight. The boxing gym smelled like sweat, leather, and determination. It was exactly what I needed. Sam's place hadn't changed in 20 years. Same cracked mirrors, same heavy bags hanging like sides of beef, same motivational posters with edges curling from humidity. You look terrible, Sam said by way of greeting. He was pushing 70, but still looked like he could go 10 rounds with guys half his age. Thanks for the pep talk, coach. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? Ate something that wasn't from a vending machine? I shrugged and started wrapping my hands. The familiar ritual felt good, like putting on armor. Heard around town that your wife's been busy, Sam continued, adjusting the heavy bag. Also heard young Mason's been telling anyone who'll listen that you're washed up. Is that right? Kid's got a mouth on him. Been coming in here acting like he owns the place, flirting with the women, starting trouble with the younger guys. I threw my first punch, feeling the satisfying thud as my fist connected with the bag. What kind of trouble? Nothing serious yet, but he's got that attitude, like the rules don't apply to him. I settled into a rhythm, working combinations that my muscles remembered even if my mind was elsewhere. Jab, cross, hook, jab, cross, hook. You want my advice? Sam asked. Do I have a choice? Smart fighters don't throw haymakers. They work the body, wear their opponent down, make them tired, make them sloppy, then finish them when they can't defend themselves anymore. I paused, breathing hard. We talking about boxing or my marriage? Both. That evening, I reopened the cafe. Word had spread about the drama, and business was actually better than usual. Nothing brought people together like a good scandal. Mrs. Patterson, who'd been coming here since I opened, leaned across the counter conspiratorially. Is it true about Jessa and that young man? I don't discuss my personal life, Mrs. Patterson. Of course not, dear. But if it were true, you'd have my complete support. That boy always seemed too big for his britches. Similar conversations happened throughout the evening. The consensus was clear. The town was on my side. Jessa might have the law degree and the fancy car, but I had something more valuable: community support. Around closing time, Mason walked in. He'd clearly been drinking, his usual cocky swagger exaggerated by alcohol. Drake, my man! He spread his arms wide like we were old friends. Heard you've been having some trouble with the wife. We're closed, Mason. Come on, don't be like that. We're practically family now. I continued wiping down tables, not trusting myself to respond. You know what your problem is? Mason continued, settling onto a bar stool. You don't know how to keep a woman happy. Jessa, she needs excitement, adventure, not some old guy who smells like coffee grounds. Get out. She told me all about your bedroom problems, how you haven't touched her in months. Can't blame a woman for looking elsewhere when her husband can't. I was across the room before I realized I'd moved. Mason's eyes went wide as I grabbed his shirt and pulled him off the stool. Whoa, easy there, old-timer. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself. The smart play was to throw him out and call the police if he came back. The smart play was to stay calm and professional. Instead, I smiled. You're absolutely right, Mason. I can't compete with a young stud like you. He relaxed, thinking he'd won. Finally, some sense. Which is why I'm not going to try. I released his shirt and stepped back. I'm going to destroy you instead. Mason's bravado faltered. What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out. He left after that, but not before knocking over a chair and making some comment about lawyers. I cleaned up and locked the door, my mind already working on the plan Sam had inspired. Time to work the body. The next morning, I made some phone calls. The first was to Jerry Morrison, who owned the building where Mason and Tina rented their apartment. Jerry and I went way back. His daughter had worked at the cafe through high school. Jerry, it's Drake Torrin. I need to ask you about the Reed apartment. Heard about your troubles, Drake. Sorry to hear it. Thanks. Listen, you might want to check on that unit. I've been hearing some concerning things about illegal activities. What kind of activities? Gambling, late-night poker games, a lot of cash changing hands. It wasn't entirely a lie. Mason had been bragging about his poker skills for months. The second call was to Linda Hayes at the bank. Linda's husband was a regular at the cafe, and she'd always been friendly. Linda, I'm calling about some irregularities in my business accounts. Looks like someone's been skimming from the register. Oh my, how much are we talking about? Few thousand over several months. I'll need to file a report and get documentation for the police. The third call was to my lawyer, confirming that the divorce papers had been filed and that I was claiming the cafe as a separate business asset predating the marriage. By lunchtime, I felt better than I had in days. The counterattack had begun. My phone buzzed with a text from Riley. Mom says you're trying to ruin her career. Is that true? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. I'm protecting myself and my business. Your mother made her choices. You're being selfish. This affects me, too. Then maybe you should talk to the person who caused the problem. She didn't respond after that. Around 3 p.m., Tina Reed walked into the cafe. She looked tired but determined, like someone who'd been through hell and decided to fight back. Coffee? I asked. Please? Black? I poured her a cup and waited. She'd come here for a reason. Filed for divorce yesterday, she said finally. Took your security footage to my lawyer. He says it's an open and shut case. Good for you. Mason's been trying to call. Says it's all a misunderstanding. Says you manipulated the situation to make him look bad. What do you think? Tina took a sip of coffee and studied my face. I think my husband's been lying to me for months. I think he's a coward who blames everyone else for his mistakes. And I think you and I might be able to help each other. How so? You want to make him pay for what he did to your marriage. I want to make sure he doesn't get away with destroying mine. Seems like we have common interests. I refilled her cup. What did you have in mind? Mason's got some secrets, things he wouldn't want becoming public knowledge, things that might interest his new girlfriend's law firm. Such as? Tax issues, unreported income from those poker games he thinks nobody knows about, some photos on his phone that his wife definitely wasn't supposed to see. You went through his phone? I pay the bill. Technically, it's my phone. Tina smiled for the first time since walking in. Amazing what people keep in their photo galleries these days. I was beginning to like Tina Reed. What do you need from me? Access to the cafe after hours. Mason hid some things here, thinking I'd never find them. Time to prove him wrong. We shook hands across the counter. The enemy of my enemy, as they say. The war was just beginning. The plan was simple. Tina would use her key. Mason had never bothered to return it, to access the cafe after closing. I'd provide backup and make sure we didn't miss anything important. He's got a loose floorboard behind the espresso machine, Tina explained as we crept through the darkened cafe. Thought he was being clever, hiding cash and other things where I'd never look. Sure enough, the board lifted easily to reveal a small cavity containing a metal box. Inside, nearly $3,000 in cash, a burner phone, and a collection of photos that made my stomach turn. Recognize her? Tina asked, holding up a picture of Mason with a blonde woman who definitely wasn't Jessa. That's Sarah Chen, the new hire from last month? The 19-year-old? 20, but yeah. Tina's jaw tightened. So he's been working his way through your entire staff. Charming. The burner phone was even more interesting. Text conversations with multiple women, including detailed discussions about private inventory sessions and special customer service. This is enough to ruin him, I said. It's a start. But I want more than just embarrassment. I want him to lose everything, the way he made us lose everything. Over the next week, we put our plan into motion. Tina leaked photos to Sarah Chen's boyfriend, a mechanic with anger management issues. She also sent copies to Mason's poker buddies' wives, along with evidence of how much money their husbands had been losing. I focused on the business side. The bank froze Mason's accounts pending investigation of the skimming. Jerry Morrison served eviction papers citing lease violations. The state tax office received an anonymous tip about unreported gambling income, but Jessa was fighting back too. You're pathetic, she said during our latest confrontation. This time she'd brought backup. Her boss, Ms. Darrow, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit. Ms. Darrow, this is my husband, the one I told you about. Mr. Torrin. Darrow's handshake was firm but cold. I understand you're going through some difficulties. Nothing I can't handle. Jessa's told me about your accusations. I hope you understand that making false claims about workplace relationships could have legal consequences. Good thing my claims aren't false. Darrow's smile was razor thin. Perhaps we should discuss this more formally. My firm handles business litigation as well as family law. The threat was clear. Play ball or get sued into oblivion. I look forward to it, I said. After they left, I called Sam. They're trying to intimidate you, he said. Classic lawyer move. Make you think you can't win, so you'll settle for scraps. Maybe I should. Riley's barely speaking to me. Half the town thinks I'm a bitter old man, and now I'm fighting a law firm with more money than God. You know what your problem is, Drake? You're thinking like a victim. Start thinking like a fighter. Easy for you to say. You're not the one getting divorced. No, but I've been in plenty of fights where I was outmatched. You know what the difference is between winners and losers? Winners find a way to change the rules. That night, I sat in the empty cafe going through old papers, financial records, employee files, correspondence with suppliers, looking for anything that might give me an edge. I found it in an old folder marked Building Permits. The cafe occupied the ground floor of a building that dated back to the 1920s. Over the years, various renovations had been done, not all of them properly documented, But I'd kept every piece of paper, including some that showed the upstairs apartment where Jessa and I lived, had been illegally converted from commercial space. More interesting was the discovery that the building's zoning classification had never been properly updated. Technically, we were operating a restaurant in a space zoned for retail only. It was a technicality that could shut us down permanently if the wrong person found out about it. Or it could be leverage if the right person knew how to use it. I made copies of everything and locked the originals in a safety deposit box. Then I called my lawyer. "How much would it cost to fix the zoning issues?" I asked. "Depends on how cooperative the city is. Could be a few thousand in fees and renovations, could be tens of thousands if they want to make an example. And if someone reported the violations, they'd shut you down immediately pending a full investigation. Could take months to resolve." Perfect. The next morning, Mason showed up at the cafe looking like he'd been hit by a truck. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by the desperate energy of a cornered animal. "We need to talk," he said. "We really don't. Look, I know you're angry, but this has gone too far. Tina's trying to destroy me. Can't imagine why. I made mistakes, okay? But I don't deserve to lose everything." I continued cleaning the espresso machine, not bothering to look at him. "Funny. That's exactly what I thought when I found you with my wife. That's different. You and Jessa, your marriage was already over. Everyone could see it. So you decided to help it along. I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did." Finally, I turned to face him. "You know what, Mason? You're right. My marriage was probably over before you came along. And maybe I should thank you for opening my eyes." He looked confused. "So we're good?" "Oh no. We're not good at all. Because while you were busy destroying my marriage, you were also stealing from my business. And that I take personally. I never stole anything." I pulled out the printed reports showing the voided transactions. $3,000 over 6 months. Small amounts, but consistent. You thought I wouldn't notice. Mason's face went pale. "I can pay it back." "Too late for that. Come on, Drake. We can work something out. I'll leave town, disappear, whatever you want. What I want is for you to face the consequences of your actions, like a man." He left after that, but I knew he'd be back. Desperate people did desperate things. I was counting on it. That evening, Tina stopped by with an update. "Mason's been calling everyone we know, trying to borrow money. Says he needs to leave town for a while. Running scared. There's something else. I found out why he was so confident about your wife." "Oh?" "She's been feeding him information about your finances. Told him exactly how much money the cafe makes, what your assets are worth. She's been planning this for a while." The betrayal stung, but it also clarified things. This wasn't just about an affair or a midlife crisis. This was about money. "There's more," Tina continued. "Mason's been bragging that once your divorce goes through, Jess is going to give him a job at her law firm. Apparently they've been planning a future together. A future built on what they stole from me." "Exactly." I poured 2 cups of coffee and we sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the town was settling into evening routines. People heading home from work, kids playing in yards, normal life continuing while my world burned down around me. "You know what the worst part is?" I said finally. "What?" "I actually loved her. Despite everything, despite how we'd grown apart, I still loved my wife. And she threw it away for a guy who steals tips from the jar." Tina reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Their loss." For the first time in weeks, I smiled and meant it. The war was far from over, but I was no longer fighting alone. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. I was closing up the cafe on a Thursday night when they walked in together. Jessa, Mason, and Ms. Darrow. They looked like a delegation arriving to accept my surrender. "Drake," Jessa said, her voice artificially sweet, "we need to settle this tonight." "The cafe's closed." "This won't take long," Darrow interrupted, setting a briefcase on the counter. "We have a proposition." "I'm listening." "You're going to drop all charges against Mr. Reed and agree to an amicable divorce. In exchange, we won't pursue legal action against you for harassment, intimidation, and filing false reports." "That's generous." "We think so. You get to keep the cafe, Jessa gets the house and half the liquid assets. Everyone walks away clean." I pretended to consider it. "And if I refuse?" "Then we destroy you," Mason said, speaking for the first time, publicly and completely. Interesting choice of words. That's when Tina walked out of the kitchen, followed by Sam and 3 other guys from the boxing gym. Mason's cocky expression evaporated. "What is this?" Darrow demanded. "This," I said, is what happens when you underestimate people. I pulled out my phone and started a live stream. Within seconds, viewers began joining. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torrin's Roast House Café. Tonight's special is a full confession from my wife and her boyfriend about how they've been planning to steal my business. You can't do this, Jessa hissed. Actually, I can. This is my property, and you're trespassing. Turn off that camera, Darrow ordered. No. Sam stepped forward, all 6 feet and 200 pounds of him. The man said no. I addressed the camera. For those just joining us, my name is Drake Torrin. 3 weeks ago, I caught my wife Jessa having an affair with our employee Mason Reed. Tonight, they're here to steal my cafe. The viewer count was climbing rapidly. Riley's friends were sharing the stream, and local Facebook groups were picking it up. Tell them about the money, Mason, I continued. Tell them how you've been skimming from the register for months. I don't have to tell them anything. You're right. The bank records speak for themselves. I held up the printed statements. $3,000 in documented theft. This is harassment, Darrow said, but her voice lacked conviction. This is justice. Jessa, tell everyone about your plan to give Mason a job at your law firm once our divorce is final. My wife's composure finally cracked. You don't understand anything. This place is falling apart, Drake. I'm trying to build a real future. A future built on lies and theft. I never stole anything. No, you just fed confidential financial information to your boyfriend so he could steal more effectively. The live stream was approaching 500 viewers. Comments were flooding in, most of them supportive. You want to know what your wife really thinks of you? Mason said, desperation making him reckless. She calls you a pathetic loser, says you're boring in bed and smell like old coffee. Mason, shut up, Jessa snapped. No, let him talk, I said. Tell everyone how you convinced my 19-year-old employee to sleep with you. Tell them about the photos on your burner phone. Mason's face went white. How did you? Tina found them, along with the cash you've been hiding and evidence of your unreported gambling income. Darrow was edging toward the door. This conversation is over. Jessa, Mason, we're leaving. Actually, you're not. That's when the police arrived. I'd called them 20 minutes earlier, reporting a break-in and threatening behavior. Officers, I said, gesturing to the camera. Perfect timing. The next hour was chaos. Mason was arrested for theft and trespassing. Darrow tried to claim lawyer-client privilege until one of the officers pointed out that conspiracy to commit fraud wasn't protected speech. Jessa stood in the middle of it all, watching her carefully constructed world collapse in real time. You've ruined everything, she said as the handcuffs clicked around Mason's wrists. No, I replied. I've just stopped pretending everything was fine. The live stream ended with over 1,000 viewers. By morning, clips were circulating on every social media platform. The local news picked up the story by noon. Riley called that afternoon. Dad, I saw the video. And? I'm sorry, I didn't know how bad it was. Your mother made her choices, so did I. Are you really okay? For the first time in months, I could answer honestly. Yeah, kiddo, I think I am. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Jessa got the house, but I kept the cafe and most of the business assets. Mason pled guilty to theft and served 90 days in county jail. His wife, ex-wife, got everything in their divorce settlement. Ms. Darrow's law firm quietly settled a malpractice claim after it came out that she'd tried to help cover up Mason's theft. I reopened Torrin's Roast House with a new sign. Under new management, same great coffee. Business was better than ever. On a crisp autumn morning, exactly 3 months after catching Jessa with Mason, I stood behind the counter watching the morning rush. Mrs. Patterson ordered her usual, along with half the town council. The college kids loved the cafe's newfound notoriety. Even Riley had started stopping by between classes. Tina worked the afternoon shift now, having quit her job at the diner. She was good with customers and even better at spotting troublemakers. Any regrets? She asked during a quiet moment. I looked around the cafe, at the mismatched chairs I'd never bothered to replace, the faded photos that told the story of 20 years in business, the espresso machine that wheezed but never quit. Just one, I said. What's that? I should have live-streamed the whole thing from the beginning. Tina laughed, and for the first time in years, the sound of laughter in my cafe felt genuine. Outside, autumn was giving way to winter, but inside Torrin's Roast House, things were finally warming up. The age joke had ended permanently, just like I'd promised, and I was just getting started,